Salve, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you, my friend? Thanks for making time for me this morning where you are and this afternoon where I am.
Oh, it's afternoon? What time is it over there?
It is 4:36.
Oh, wow. It's about 8:35 right here. Now, you're not in Rome right now, are you?
No, I am standing in the Accademia or the Academy Museum of Florence, which is famous for a lot of things, but the biggest one you can make out behind me, that is Michelangelo's David. They are currently making a reproduction of it using lasers and a 3D printer. And so that's the commotion that you hear behind me.
Oh, that's interesting. So, reproduction, that means like it's not the original, but it's very similar to it?
That's right, it's a copy. They're making a very big copy. So this original behind me, the original statue sculpted by Michelangelo, not the Ninja Turtle, but the artist, the Renaissance master, is here in Florence. Whereas I live about an hour and a half away by train in Rome, which is where I shot that video recently.
Right. So, I meant to say thank you so much for taking the video for us, for giving us a walking tour. It's the perfect time because we're just about to take the big Roman test, or we've already taken it, depending on when my wonderful student sees it. Can we talk? Maybe you can introduce yourself a little, and then we'll go to the video. What exactly do you do? What are you doing in Rome?
I am a journalist. I'm a reporter for television for the CBS channel, which I think is Channel 5, or at least it was Channel 5 when I was still living in Arizona. So I work for them, and that means I live in Italy and I tell stories to people in America about Italy and also other places around the world. But I live in Rome most of the time.
So does that mean, as a reporter, you've been on television?
Yes, it it does mean that. I've been on television, I've done radio, I've done print, I've done online stuff, but now I mostly do television.
That's great. Thank you so much for doing this for us. Let's go to the video, and then afterwards, I have a couple of questions for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so from this modest porta potty to the Palatine Hill to the Colosseum. Let me get away from the scaffolding. So right in front of us, we've got the Arch of Constantine. And to our right, you see the Colosseum, and you also see some work that they're doing, which should be nice. I think they're gonna finally clean up this area. Oh, look. See? They're doing some work, and it looks like they may have even found some Roman ruins in the process, which is extremely common. Anytime you do some road work around here to fix a street or a park, it's very likely you're going to turn up ruins. Another fancy word for that is spolia. These look like they're pieces of pediment or frieze. Anyway, pieces of old buildings. So over here to the left, you have the beginnings of the Roman Forum. Now it's a bit of a walk, so I'm gonna stop filming and take you over to the Roman Forum now. Well, I thought I'd give you another angle first, just because this is so cool. Here, I should show you these too. These massive stones that are just as ancient as the city of Rome. In fact, the streets would have looked a lot like this some 2,000 years ago. Just to give you here, you can see my foot and how big it is. I wear a size 11 and a half, 12. So these are pretty big pavement stones. Anyway, as I said, over here you've got the beginning of the Roman Forum. So here's the other side of the Arch of Constantine, another angle on the Colosseum now. And over there, where I'm walking to right now, they're actually doing road work on the subway line. It's gonna go right beneath the Colosseum. Oh, here's a cool shot. So this is the beginning of the Roman Forum. You can see they're doing some construction work on some of the buildings in there. That's actually to fortify it, to make it stronger while they're building the subway, because that involves a lot of heavy drilling and digging that could destabilize these ancient buildings. So they're making sure they don't collapse during construction. Could easily trip here. And look, more Colosseum. All right, you guys get it. That's the Colosseum. And there's more of that construction I was telling you about. See the cranes? Should be ready in a couple years. And here is the Roman Forum. How do you like that? Here you have a big street that is relatively new. It's only about 100 years old, and it divides the Roman Forum in half. Technically, this side of the Roman Forum is more recent, and it's called the Imperial Forum. So here you have what's technically the Roman Forum, and over here, the Imperial Forum. Although most people, when they're talking about it, they don't make any distinction. This is all just the Roman Forum. Let's take a look at this other side here. And they call it the Imperial Forum because of emperors. Can you make this out? Ooh. Look, there's another one up there. There we go. Pretty impressive. What does that one say? All right, and here we are in what today is known as Largo Argentina, and bears the ancient ruins of the theater of Pompey, at least partially. And look down there, can you see that? Look at that. Today it's a cat sanctuary. So abandoned cats or stray cats, whoever, want to come and chill, this is a safe place for them to do it. Also over there, every year they perform a reenactment of the assassination of Julius Caesar. Can you guess on which date they perform it? Hint, it's the same day every year. So here's another perspective. And just so you understand, I walked from over there, where I was at the Roman Forum before. It took me about 15-20 minutes to walk over here, just to give you a sense of perspective. And now we're gonna walk down that street, the one right in front of us, and go see the last stop on our Roman tour. It's about a 2-minute walk up that street. Okay, now this today is a church, but before that, it was a temple to the goddess Minerva. And you can still kind of tell from the outside, which is completely different from the inside, which looks exactly like a Gothic cathedral. Fortunately, it's closed right now. Here's just one example of ancient Roman temples being converted into Christian sites. In fact, right over here is one of the biggest of them all. That is the Pantheon. Let's go and see another side. While we're walking over there, we can talk about the name, which you might already understand. It comes from the Greek, pan meaning all, and theon meaning God. So it was a temple to all the gods, and it is pretty big and impressive. At the time, it was the biggest domed structure in the world. In fact, it remained that way for centuries. And you can't see from this angle, but on top, it has a dome that is unsupported by beams. And today, it's the biggest dome of its kind that's unsupported by beams. Here you go. You can see the side of it now a little bit better. Get around these cars. See the entryway here with these magnificent Corinthian columns made out of granite. Here's the square in front of it. In Italian, we call that a piazza. Now, you can see the front. Oops, sorry, got my finger in the way there. All right. Pretty cool. So like I said, it used to be a pagan temple to all the gods, but today it's a Catholic church. You've got the military out in front protecting it. Unfortunately, you can't go inside because of COVID. If you could, you would see a really big hole in the middle of the roof called an oculus. Hopefully Mr. Helminski can find some pictures of that. For now, this is as far as we can go.
Wow, that was a really interesting tour. So just to be clear, so about how much time were you out walking to go to those sites from the Forum and the Pantheon and so on? How much time did it take you to walk through that whole trip?
You know, it took me probably 40 minutes, 45 minutes, but if I wasn't stopping to take video, it would have only taken about a half an hour to walk from the Colosseum through the Roman Forum, past the Pompey Theater, the area where Julius Caesar was assassinated, and finishing up in front of the Pantheon. That would have only taken about 30 minutes.
Wow, those things must be really close to each other. Do you live close to any of those sites?
No, not really. I used to live very close to them, but I moved a little further away recently. Now, the most important or impressive the monument, shall we say, is the aqueducts. They're very close to me. So very close to my home, you can see those big stone arches that carried water from the hills all the way into the city of Rome. They're still standing today.
Do any of the aqueducts still carry water to service the people of Rome?
Yeah, they do. Some of them do. Most of them don't. But the most famous one still carries water to the Trevi Fountain, which your students might be familiar with. It's a very impressive, very beautiful fountain in the middle of Rome, and that water actually comes pumped in from an aqueduct.
Speaking of fountains, when you were at the piazza in front of the Pantheon, I noticed there was a young boy uh, playing with a fountain. I think he may even have bent over at one point to get a drink. So are there still working fountains in the city of Rome based on the old Roman structures?
There are. In fact, there are many, many fountains. Some of them are big and ornate, but most of them are very small. In fact, they look like they have a big nose sticking out of them, and the water comes out of the spout that looks like a nose. In fact, the Romans called them nasoni, which literally means big noses. And most of this water is natural spring water that is on its way to the sea. It's just naturally flowing. And so these fountains sort of just are like somebody sticking their hand into the water and taking a scoop out as it's making its way to the sea. So the water is just constantly flowing from these fountains.
Interesting. Nazone, is that how you say it?
Yeah, one nazzone, two nazzoni.
Oh, oh, okay. I like that you sprinkled your tour with so many wonderful words from Italian and from Latin. I'll bet you would be impressed by how many Latin and Greek morphemes our scholars here in Chandler know.
I'm
I'll
sure
bet
I
they
would
did
be.
recognize
Definitely more
Pan
than
and Theon.
me when I was their age.
Oh yeah, yeah, me too, me too. Um, when you were at the Imperial Forum, so on the other side of the road, where there was you showed us a statue of Neroi and of Augustus. I was wondering, are those the original statues from the time of the early empire?
No, those are copies that can be out there all the time. You know, they can get rained on, and birds can poop on them, and they can get replaced over time. The originals are inside of museums.
Mm, okay. So they're reproductions, like the reproduction they're making of Michelangelo's David behind you.
Exactly.
It's so interesting to see so many modern things right next to so many ancient structures. It was really fascinating to hear about how, as you said, the people of Rome were fortifying the structures as they dug through the subway. It's kind of hard to imagine that this ancient city also has subways running through, streetlights and all of that. Which makes me wonder, so you're a modern person, you weren't around when Julius Caesar. You live in Rome today. What's it like living in a city surrounded by so much history where you could just throw a stone and you're going to hit something that's 2,000 years old or more? What's it like?
It's very exciting in many ways because there's just so much to discover all the time. I've lived in Rome for 10 years now, and I've only begun to scratch the surface. Most of the city and most of its monuments and most of its treasures I have yet to discover. And that's true for people who have lived here their entire lives because there's just so many layers of history, not just from ancient Rome, but then you also have Christian history here. You have the popes who have been in Rome for 2,000 years. Then you have so many other periods that followed, such as the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, all the way up until the year we live in right now. And it can be dizzying. In fact, I think most people who live in Rome are usually not thinking about the fact that they're living in an important ancient city. They're thinking about normal things that you and I think about every day. They're thinking about going to school or going to work and buying their groceries and having to sit through traffic. And sometimes you just have to take a moment and smack yourself to remember, wow, I live in Rome. I have the Colosseum right over there, and here's where Nero, the Emperor Nero, would have tread. So it's at the end of the day, it's just another city like Chandler is in many ways.
So when you're moving around Rome, are you sometimes full of a tingling feeling thinking about the ancient Romans? Does it fill you with inspiration and admiration and all kinds of other abstract noun shun words?
Sometimes, sometimes I am, but other times I'm disgusted by the ancient Romans, because take the Colosseum, for instance, that background behind you I'm looking at. And yes, it's quite big and it's quite impressive, but it's also a monument of death and suffering, human suffering, but also animal suffering. I mean, just think about the untold number of human lives that were lost there during gladiatorial events or other types of entertainment, other types of games in which they slaughtered animals that you can't even count. And yet I see people standing in front of the Colosseum, taking pictures of themselves, taking selfies. I've even seen people taking their wedding pictures in front of the Colosseum, which I find kind of absurd, and it shows a lack of understanding for that monument and really what it represents. I don't dislike the Colosseum and what it represents today. I think it needs to be there, but I think we need to have the proper context, the proper understanding, the proper education of really what it means. All types of horrors and atrocities were committed inside of the Colosseum. So rather than looking at it and only seeing how impressive and beautiful it is, I think we also need to look at it and learn about some of the worst mistakes of humanity in order to never come close to repeating them ever again.
That's an interesting perspective. So for all of their wonderful achievements, the Romans could still do some pretty rotten things.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so fascinating. Thank you so much for taking us on this tour, for showing us a little behind the scenes of what it's like to be a journalist. This has been a great pleasure. You were a great tour guide, too.
Thank you, Mr. Helminski. It's been my pleasure.
And I hope to see you back soon, or maybe I'll come visit you. Do you mind if I bring along 96 guests to come along with me to stay with you in Rome?
I hope you do. I hope you bring all of your students. I'd love to see you here.
Thank you again. This has been a great pleasure. I'm sure that everyone's going to enjoy seeing your tour back here in Chandler. Where you're from, by the way.
Exactly. I'm very homesick, by the way, especially this time of year. It's been great. Thank you so much, Mr. Helminski. So. I've got to go. I'll talk to you later.
Wale.
Bye-bye. Ciao. Arrivederci.